Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa, where spring is sprung and the weather is getting super sweet. So I'm happy to have you back again, Catherine Edwards. How are you?
I'm cold. It's really cold. Just as the spring has gone to you, winter seems to have hit big time in the UK. So, but not natural winter, as we all know. We all know it's all been very heavily manipulated. And I've had a bit of a tough week because my Facebook account's been hacked, and it's just a nightmare. It's like one of these things there, with the whole Great Awakening and everything, and everyone talks about, oh, everyone's just got to say no and do stuff. But actually, a lot of this stuff is very difficult for us to get out of. And, it's not a big deal, but we were just talking off screen that it's all my memories, all my family photos and things like that. But I think it's a sign of a bigger times of, how susceptible and actually how in areas of your life where you think you can have control over, you actually haven't got control over, and people can pull the switch on things and do pull the switch on things at any time. And you and I had YouTube accounts deleted, and there's hours and hours of that's like a point. It's almost like a time capsule in history for you, and a lot of work and a lot of passion that goes into these things. And I think when we're talking about this stuff, sometimes it can be easy when we're sort of talking and with everyone in the audience about things without really, you can intellectualize things, but the real cost, the real human cost of everything that everyone's going through is very, very different. We can all sit there and have discussions about the war in Ukraine, but if you're actually in Ukraine and, the losses have been so horrendous, it's this reality check sometimes that I think really sort of hits hard for a lot of us, and everyone goes through these reality checks at different times. I mean, yesterday 9/11, and that so much has come up for that for everyone, because that was sort of a marker in time when everything changed for everyone, like 2020.
Isn't it so true, that is the case? Because and it's so true. I'm just going to backtrack a little bit about what you were saying, is that we think we have things in control in our lives, and all it takes is for some dumbass to have too much time on his hands or her hands and wreak havoc in someone else's life by hacking into their personal account. God knows what they're going to get out of that, right? I mean, it's a chance. But in the meantime, it obviously creates a lot of chaos for you. And it does. I mean, we can look at Facebook. I was just saying as well, I've been on Facebook since 2007. And I mean, for me, it's like a diary, especially when the memories come. Like, I make a point of when I've been traveling, I'll check in just because it's also like a diary for me. When did I go? And especially when I was traveling a lot. Photographs of my family, my friends, my memories, It's quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of us originally used it for. I'm just moving my heater closer. I think a lot of us used it for that. And, memories are priceless. And I think for me, I'm seeing a lot this week. I'd love to see how the audience, and I think it hits into our topic of revolution and evolution, because there's so many different energies going on for all of us. It's so easy to talk about these global events and the atrocities going on and talk about them and put the logic and the spiritual hat on it, but often it just loses the real life impact of what different people are going through. If you've got a health challenge, if you've got a financial challenge, if you've got, look at what they're doing to the weather. We talk about the weather and it's so awful. And so many people say, well, everyone's just got to say no. Well, what do you actually say no to? If you want to stop geoengineering, what do you want to say no to? If you want to stop the digital currencies, what do you say no to? What do we as individuals do? And I think there's so much attention being put on global elections. And I've been horrified, actually, almost really big people who've got some really great points to come, but it's almost like it's a competition as to whose country's in the most of a shit show. And you're like, actually, these are affecting all of us. Now, the speed and the order that they do it in our different countries will change. Like you over in South Africa, Chantelle, you've been dealing with energy issues, with them cutting off your power, with them cutting off your internet for ever since I've known you. And touch wood, in the UK, that hasn't come to us yet. But do you see what I mean? The problems are very different, and we can think it's not going to come to us, but it might well do. And then how do we all respond, and what really happens then?
Oh, I think it's certainly going to be moving to the rest of the world. I just know in America now, this past few months, the power cuts they've had, and obviously the internet is goes hand in hand with the power.
Exactly.
So of course there's that. So again, we, especially within this digital age, we're completely reliant upon that. So, we either on our telephones, on our social media. I mean, in my day, it was just a telephone, and I know yours would have been the same. And we did not have social media, but people have become so used to that now, right? And but it's absolutely the way that the controllers have led this world. Where we are right now is exactly where they want us to be. Disconnected, out of sync with nature, because nature is really God in action. When you look at nature, it's, there's a beautiful saying that says, gosh, what is it? It's a quote really by an old guy. I can't remember his name now, but it says human beings must be the most insane species because we worship an invisible God, yet we continue to destroy nature, which is the invisible God made visible.
Yeah.
So when we completely war against nature, it's warring against creation. It's warring against creation itself. And what we've seen now is that there's been this huge shift, right, to electronics, etc., where we don't have that control anymore, where we are now completely at the hands of someone else. So that's why I keep saying, at this time we have to find that balance. Sure, have your social media, etc., but let that not be the thing that owns your life. Let that not be the thing that makes you get up in the morning and get up. We've got to have our love with our families, our friends, our animals out there in nature to remain balanced and connected. And everything else actually needs to come from that. That's how, in my opinion, we're going to survive.
Absolutely. And also information and education was so reliant on the internet, money, buying things, it doesn't matter whether you're into crypto, whether you're into normal money, whatever that might be. The whole point is they can pull it straight away. Even if you're into cash, keep cash king. But, if they pull the electrics, you can't even go and get cash out from anywhere. And lots of places are stopping cash out. So
right.
I think, when we were talking about revolution and evolution, it's a bit like you need both, and you need these different personalities. And what I want to do, am I able to share the screen, Chantelle?
Yes, you just at the bottom press present.
Okay.
And when you press present, and then I'll share it from here.
I wanted to share. How do I get the window? No, I want to. Can you see that?
No.
Okay. Can you pull up then from your end? I've lost you all completely now. Completely lost you all. What I'm trying to pull up is the Hawkins scale of consciousness, and I'll explain why. Because whilst I'm trying to work out how to do this, because I don't want some of the other stuff that's on my thing coming up. I just wanted, here we are. See, can you see that?
Let me see. Okay, yeah, now it's coming up. Okay.
Yeah. I just thought if we bring this up, because when we were, what struck me, Shanti, when you were saying talk about revolution and evolution, is they both got, we can talk through the pros and cons of each. And obviously, as Miss Fifi said, they both refer to change and different approaches. But I heard a really lovely interview with Robert F. Kennedy, and one of the things we were talking about is the energy, or actually, this was from another interview where people were doing an analysis of the Trump-Kamala debate. And one of the things I thought was really important about that analysis is like, well, yes, you can look at the revolutionary types and you can look at the evolution. You can look at, well, there's a lot of talk in this whole movement about cause a revolution, you've got to bring back the old. And then there's the other school of thought, which are like, no, we've got to create the new. And of course, you probably need a bit of both. But whatever side of the fence you're on, whether you're more of a revolutionary character or an evolutionary character, I would be saying, what energy are those actions being taken from? Because the results we're getting are very down to the energy and the consciousness from which you're taking those reactions. So if you're doing a revolution from the emotional states of despair, anxiety, hate, anger, that's what you're going to be bringing into the existence. Whilst if you're doing a revolution from some of the more higher frequency emotional states, then it's very, very different. So I think sometimes we talk about the things, but we don't talk about, it's like when you're living your life, who are you becoming? What energy you can, two people can say the same things, but from a very different energy, and therefore get different reactions and different results. It's not just the words you say, it's where are you on this emotional scale when you're saying it. And when we're looking at, I personally think we need both sides of the argument. I think we need the revolutionary people that are, I mean, one of my really good friends has just been struck off by the General Medical Council as a doctor, 20-year plus career as a doctor, for spreading COVID misinformation. So even though in the mainstream all this information is coming out, he's still been struck off as a doctor from it. And haven't we seen this throughout history? Quite often people don't get their justice till 20 years, 100 years down the line. So this is what I mean in terms of when we're talking about the revolutionary spirit, when we're talking about creating the new world in a more evolutionary way that we want to do. And I think there's pros and cons on both sides of the argument. I would ask people to say, when they're taking either actions, where are they? Because, when you're in a vibration of fear, which means you're going to be anxious, or you might have anger and hate, or pride and scorn, and these different ways that they manifest themselves. It's more being aware of that, I would say, of how you're conducting the action that's going to dictate the results and how successful it is.
Intention, again, it's the intention. I mean, let's think about, as you say, where we're at right now. We sort of post-COVID, a lot of people have woken up, right? A lot of revolutionary ideas, because whether you agree with astrology or not is really quite irrelevant. Astrology is real. Astrology is from the heavens, and there definitely is the heavenly astrological zodiac, so to speak. We are moving into the time of Aquarius. Now, each one of these ages and stages has a different energy that sort of, I want to say, controls it, right? And if we look at what's happening now, definitely if we look at the element or the sign of Aquarius, Aquarius is the revolutionary. Aquarius is the visionary. Aquarius is the one that usually lives 50 or 100 years ahead of their time in their heads, because the ideas are they're like known as the geniuses, right? So when we're looking at where we're at right now, it's very in line with that. And I mean, obviously, on the negative side of that, we're getting the viruses, high tech, AI, all of the stuff that is unemotional. Aquarius does not like emotion. Aquarius is brilliant. It's ruled by lightning. Think about that. So it's fast, sharp, and it hits you hard, and it will stun you, sometimes kill you. I mean, figuratively, that is. You know, when things need to be changed or whatever. But on the other side of that, now when we're looking at what's happening now, there's so much revolution going on. Look at what's happening with the younger generations. Look at what's happening in the streets of the cities. And that is most definitely coming from a place of anger. Anger comes from a space of being disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your creator, from your source, from God, whatever you choose to call it. Anger really is a mask for fear and pain. So the pain of constant oppression and the fear that it will never end is what creates these revolutionaries to get completely mad and burn the streets down, right? We've seen that so much and just create chaos. I mean, here in South Africa and Africa generally, it is horrific to see the violence in the African communities when that mob mentality takes hold. I mean, there was something here, for example, called necklacing. And that was in the time that Winnie Mandela and Nelson Mandela was in jail. We're talking early 80s, yeah. This is quite graphic, guys, so warning. And this was African on African violence, okay? So it wasn't like them doing it to white people. This was sadly in the townships. They would do the necklacing. They would catch guys, tie their hands and feet together with barbed wire, cut them off, douse them with petrol, put a tire around their neck, and set them alight. That was the norm. And that was the call to freedom that Winnie Mandela was asking for in this country in the early 80s. And it wasn't white people, it was African people that were on the receiving end of that, I repeat. Now, for me, that is also, it's such a sign of frustration and anger. And, you know, we look at the African people that have been suppressed for so many years in this country. That was their revolution, right? But I do think that sometimes a revolution is a good thing, even if it is negative. I always try to look for the positive because it's breaking a cycle. It's the people that have said enough is enough is enough is enough. I'm not going to be taking this nonsense anymore. But then once you see, evolution comes from the inner change. Revolution causes evolution. So evolution is going to come from the inner change. It's going to come from the desire within yourself to do better, not to do worse, not to be more angry, not to be more affected by what's going on around you, but to take a step forward in the times of crises and in the times of chaos and see how you can bring forth an energy that evolves the situation more peacefully. I don't know what your take on that is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I suppose the only thing I would add to that is that evolution doesn't have to come from revolution. It can do, but also it can be completely separate and come from, you know, just processes that having over the time. And it's fascinating to see how people respond, and we need all these different personalities. But, you know, I was out with a very, very good friend last night, and I started talking about some of the current issues that were sort of high on my agenda. And she's very much like, I just don't want to know. I just don't look at any of this. I just don't want to know. I'm just getting on with my own life. And we are seeing that so much still with so many different people, you know, the head in the sand approach. And, you know, there were a few of us that were having this discussion a week ago, people more like the listeners of this channel and like us, who are much more probably the revolutionary types in terms of, you know, we're not going to sit quietly and not say anything. We're not going to bury our heads in the sand. But actually, what was quite obvious is a lot of the people that do bury their heads in the sand have a much easier run of it. And I think this is where it's people have got to really look deep into themselves and understand what they feel their dharma is, their sole purpose is, because there's different, very, in simplistic terms, two very different types of people that walk the earth. You've got the people, like I heard RFK say, coming back to the interview I heard earlier, who said, you know, he was brought up with the family that it's not about your own personal, it's, you know, what can we do for your country? Not ask what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for the country. And there's people that go through that whole life where they are literally looking to serve, not in a submissive way, but in an empowering way, in a proactive way. And they are going to take the consequences and put their head above the parapets and taking, you know, really taking the consequences of it. And when you're so in your conviction and on your purpose, where you 100% believe in what you're doing, you can cope with all the negatives that come with it, which are many, you know, the shaming, the taking of lives, the, you know, everything in between. And where I think a lot of people falter, and I think this is where certainly I see the vast majority of society at the moment, even those people that consider themselves awake, is I think it comes back to the old thing that they're not all in, you know, they're still this thing about human behavior, where it's been proved time and time again that the vast majority of people need something drastic to happen in their lives before they make a major change. And I think at the moment there's a lot of people talking about wanting to make change, but in my opinion, not enough people taking action. And that action can be both the revolutionary types and the evolutionary types. And I personally really believe we need both. We really need both.
I agree.
Where do you sit on that? And are you sitting on one of those? And are you actually doing something?
And I so agree with what you're saying. We need both types of people, you know, when we're looking, for example, at the Buddhist monks, because what they do is they'll, you know, their purpose really is to channel peaceful energy into the earth.
Yeah.
So they spend a lot of time meditating and connecting. So, I mean, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, and I can't even remember exactly what the incident was, but the Buddhist monks were actually doing peaceful marches, and they actually set themselves alight. Now, a lot of people could not understand, and when I'm talking about set themselves alight, not with a match, they did it with their own energy, right? Because they were completely, but you see, that's what happens there. It's like they chose to revolt in probably a passive-aggressive way, but their spirits were completely aligned with their mission and their purpose. So that was their choice about they wanted to show what they were saying. I remember it was a good few years ago. People were horrified. There was a big shenanigan over it. I remember that.
Literally, death. What, when you say they set themselves alive, what happened?
Yes, they burnt themselves alive. Because there was some, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to go check up on this, I think it might have had to do something with Tibet and China, that type of, it could have been round about there. Could have been round about that as well. But my point is, you know, so there's a lot that we need the passive people like that as well, who are equally as powerful. We must never, ever forget that just because something is passive doesn't mean it's weak. Or subtle doesn't mean it's weak. It is so important. That subtle, passive, watery energy, that's the feminine energy. That fills up all the gaps, you know. So that's kind of like what we really have to understand. Force and brutal power and killing and murdering and slaughtering, yes, and times. I mean, one of my favorite historic characters is Spartacus. I love Spartacus. I love the story of Spartacus, you know, because that was such an epitome of the times of slavery, right? Where men were held captive and literally used for the women's pleasure, the hierarchy or elite, whatever you call them. You know, a lot of those gladiators were there as studs. I mean, they were just like objects for the elite. So, and just the suppression at the time, it took a leader like that to create a revolution. And yes, sometimes a revolution does require bloodshed. Sometimes that's exactly what has to happen as well in order for change to occur. But again, as you were saying earlier, that depends on the integrity of the leader, right? And I think at this point in time, all of us, not everyone is a leader. Not every man is an alpha male, right? There are lots of beta males, and I mean, I've had lots of conversations with men over the years. A lot of men don't want to be alpha, but they feel like they're forced to be. Do you see what I'm saying? Because of society and circumstances and stuff like that. So I just think we have to get back to being okay with where we at. And we just have to ask, what is the evolution that's going to create the revolution in me? Or what's the revolution that's going to create the evolution in me? As you see, they're like synonymous. My revolution, and I've spoken about this before, was when my fiance was killed in a hijacking. That for me was a game changer. I realized in that moment I just had to fulfill my purpose, and it's because of that I do what I do today. So you can take something like that it has such a revolutionary effect on your life, because revolution is change. And Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, is all about change. So even if we don't like, and I mean, this is note to self, even if we don't like the transgenderism and what's going on, at the end of the day, that's another soul experiencing their reality. So take the judgment away and just observe. It might not be right for me. I might want to go and do a whole lot of rallies saying what I stand up for. That's fine. Express what you stand for. Stand up for what you believe. That is so important. And if you are one of the underdogs, then get a community together. Stand up. Do what you need to. Go to the newspaper. Go to your whatever it is, your constitutional. We don't have those things here, and even if we did, all they do is steal our money. And so that's what I'm saying. It is within us to create our own revolution, or to notice when your higher being or your higher power has sent a situation in your life which is a tower moment or a revolution moment, or feels like everything is collapsing. But in order for things to build up, sometimes they've got to collapse. If the structure in which it's been broken down in was not made of truth, it's going to break down. So we have to look at all of these things. And this is the time of rebuilding. It is the time of revolution and change. Every one of us on this planet are going to experience that. The one constant thing, and the one thing we can really always know for sure is going to happen, is change. Most of us don't like change. Me, that's always gallivanting around. I hate change. I hate it. I hate traveling. There's nothing fun about sitting on a stupid aeroplane with 400 stinky people. There's nothing glamorous about that. I like it when I'm there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about things like that, even little things. But I do it because I know it's necessary. And that creates the evolution in me. Change, revolution, evolution is what. And when it comes knocking at the door, we have to know it's time.
Yeah, I just want to take you back, because you started off that by saying that, you have to be all right where you are. And I think for me, there's a confusion in that. I think a lot of people get very confused in that, because you can still be ready. You can have something really traumatic happen that might, like you had, that pushed you into a major change in your life. But I think a lot of people take it as literally to sort of say, oh, well, it's important spiritually to be accepting of where you're at, and therefore that means I don't mean to make any change. Yeah. And that's not how you and I think, are talking about it at all. I just wanted to clarify that point, is you can be all right knowing that this is a time now where you need to make massive change in your life.
Exactly that. When that moment comes and you're caught between a rock and a hard place, or you simply have to make a decision, it's this way or that way. We're all in a place of choice right now. It really is. We cross so many people are coming to a crossroads in their life. So which way are you going to go? This way or that way? Do you take the highway or the low way? Whatever. And what I meant by that, when I said that earlier on, we have to be okay where we are. I mean, is that even if you are living in squalor, even if your husband just left you for your mother or your whatever, think of whatever drastic situation. I mean, I always tell the story that when those guys came into my house and broke my thing and came into my room with a rock while I was sleeping and just about took my skull out, but I woke up and I ran after them, but I couldn't go any further because all the glass was all over and I was barefoot. And I stood there and I said, thank you, God. Thank you that I'm safe, and show me what I need to learn through this experience. It wasn't, oh, you SOBs, I'm going to shoot you, come here, call the cops, have 3 hours of chaos, and then finally go down. I was like, what do I need to learn? Show me what I need to see. And I cannot tell you how quickly I got what I needed to see, and how grateful that all sorts of things that I just immediately assimilated and I said, thank you for. So my point is, every situation that comes your way, same thing when my fiance was killed. I knew, of course, is that a nice thing to go through? Never, ever, ever. But I knew that I had so much to learn through that experience. And I knew I could either sink or I could swim through that experience. And I chose to swim. And I'm doing the butterfly and the backstroke and the crawl. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, every situation, no matter where you are, take a moment, no matter how much pain your heart is in, no matter how scared you are, no matter how angry you are, take a moment and say, I am here. What do I need to learn about myself here and now? And then listen. Be quiet. Put off your phone. Put off the music. Put off your TV. Go for a walk in the forest if you have. Go for a walk on the beach. It's the intention again. When you say, yes, I'm ready, and that is your way of saying, yes, I'm ready, then you got to listen. Because now you're saying, I'm ready. What do I need to do? Oh, you must go that way. Okay, I'll go just now. First, I'm going to go, yeah, da. I mean,
this is why I think sorry to interrupt, but I think this is, to me, sums up the whole reason why we're at now, why we're still at this. And we've all been through, the last few years, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We all know this has been going on for a lot longer. But the whole point is if we're not asking ourselves our questions, not asking our friend, what do you think I should do? Can take on other people's ideas, but at the end of the day, the responsibility and the choice is with you and no one else. Yes, you can get other opinions and you can choose to ignore them or take them on board. But this time, we've spoken so much about this time where everyone's always looking to blame someone else. We can all talk to the cows come home about being, how we've got to the state where we are. Well, we know that, once you know that, you don't need to talk about it anymore. You need to just sort of say, well, what am I going to do about it? And this is where you can probably tell my frustration, because I'm like, my goodness, there's so much happening at the moment at literally, you can almost use the awful expression warp speed, but literally it's so much happening in all our countries of ploughing forward with what I personally consider the dark agenda. And I'm still not seeing many people do stuff. I'm still seeing a lot of people expecting someone else to do it for them. And I'm like, well, if that's the way it is, then, that's the way it's going to play out. And we know that's not going to play out positively for most people. But if that's the way it's got to be, so be it. But I'm not going to be one of those people, personally. I'm going to. It's not about fighting for what you believe in. It's about living what you believe in. It's about taking action. It's about your day-to-day actions being in integrity with the world that you do want to be living in and creating and bringing your children up and hopefully grandchildren.
It's so true. You hit a very important point there. It's not about fighting for what I believe in. You see, this is something that we all must remember about energy. Now, remember, energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. Boom. That's the mantra that we live by. So the minute we fight, think about the word fight. It's aggressive, it's angry, it's hard, it's tough, it's brutal, it's sore, it's pain, it's blood, it's our teeth, whatever the case might be. Whatever picture or words fighting conjures up in your mind, it's an energy of resistance. So just by thinking about the word fighting, you immediately create resistance in your mind. Now you got to fight for what you believe in. Just by saying those words, you're creating that for yourself. I've got to fight, I've got to fight, I've got to fight. I'm going, BS.
Well, bring that chart back up whilst you're saying that, because I think it would just be so useful whilst you're talking about that to be people be looking at the chart again, because it just puts it beautifully. It's so true. And it's so easy to get us into this state. You've only got to look at any football crowd. You know, this is what we've got to realise is that, and I hate saying that, no one's got to do anything I say, but, you know, the thing is that the powers that be know exactly how to change our emotional states. This is the thing. They just know at the moment how to play the game better than most of us. So they know exactly which buttons to push to get us into these, to withdraw or feel enslaved or aggressive or indifferent or vengeful. Look how easy it is for them to bring us back down into these bottom half of the table there. And we need to play them at their own game and understand this, and understanding that when we literally come back into these higher vibrational states, that's when we really shift our world.
Absolutely. It's so true. And then we realize there is no fight. Believe what you believe. It's got nothing to do with the external world around you. It's something to do between you and your higher being, right? And then when you stop that fight, because so many people have made their religious beliefs their fight.
Yeah.
If that's, spirituality is never really about fighting with anyone else, or it shouldn't be. It's a journey you take within yourself. But what we often do is we project it externally. And then because we've been taught this and that and the next thing, and 24 generations before that have been taught the same thing, it's so ingrained into us that we believe that's our truth. And it's not. That's indoctrination, and that's ancestral indoctrination as well. I mean, if I look at my ancestors, especially on my one side of the family, I want to look at those guys. I run with us. I'm like, I'm not from you lot. You know what I mean? But it's just something, I don't know. We just have to learn how to be okay with who we are, how to accept no matter how better everyone else around me seems, because oftentimes that's what we believe. But what are the things in me that are unique? Your power is that you are you and no one else is you. So what are the beautiful things in your life that you bring to this earth? You might be artistic. You might have a funny laugh. You might have cute dimples. And if that's all you think you have, then smile so that everyone can admire your dimples. Give someone else to smile from. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm using little things as an analogy. Start by being grateful. Start by being grateful that you have 10 fingers that are flexible. Can you imagine if you didn't have 10 flexible fingers? Start by being grateful for 10 flexible toes. Start by being grateful for your eyes that see. Doesn't matter how fat or thin you are, or how many scars you have on your body, or how ugly you think you are after 4 children. Look at yourself in the mirror. One of the things I do with my students, one of the workshops I run, one of the assignments is they've got to stand in front of the mirror for a week every day and look at themselves naked. And it's not about, ooh, I'm this or whatever. It's really just looking at your body. If you're a woman, your belly that held your babies, your breasts that fed your children. We start looking at our bodies differently. And when we start looking at ourselves differently, we start appreciating each other differently, because then we start realizing each person's journey is a tough one. It's a tough journey. Life on this earth is no fun. I mean, lots of times it is, but it's not an easy one. So some of us have it worse than others, but none of us come here scot-free. But just to start appreciating the little things in yourself, appreciate that you have a bed to sleep in at night, appreciate that you've got your animals or your dogs, that you've got water to drink. Things that you would never think of being grateful for, start appreciating those things. And somehow doing that makes us softer. It makes us appreciate things around us more as well. And it makes people appreciate us more. And when we do that, we start having a connection. And when we start having a connection with someone, that's when we start enjoying life and each other, and no longer want to then cut off and check at our cell phones 24/7.
Yeah, I do wonder. I sort of laugh when we're doing these chats, because you're doing the chats and we're getting into it, and then you get a comment like, the boomers created this mess, and I'm like, what's the point? It's like, if that's all.
Who are the boomers? Are the boomers our parents, or are we the boomers? Who are the boomers?
I've got no idea. I'm so not a labels person. It's hysterical. So as a consequence, I've no idea what generation.
So it's all the boomers, and no one else created the mess. Just the boomers.
At all. None
yeah.
of our.
You had nothing to do with that. You just by accident.
Yeah.
Boomers aren't. Yeah, there's no boomers that are your ancestors, right? No, you don't come from a boomer bloodline.
Yeah, it is hysterical. It's like, yeah, this is the age of lack of self-responsibility, and anyone who's still stacking less responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, karma hit them. Go for it.
Absalom, there's nothing to be sorry about. I'm joking. It's funny. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. It is funny. But yeah, it is, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. Don't have to agree with any of that. But I don't know. I suppose I'm lucky. The way I was, brought up was always, life's not fair, get on with it, and that's, I think. And I'm certainly not going to sit there and blame anyone else for this mess. And I'm just like, how exciting that there's so many of us realize it's a mess now. That's a starting point. You can't stop yourself being an alcoholic or a drug addict if you don't admit that you're an alcoholic or a drug addict. So what I find so exciting about this time is the fact that so many people realize that this is a real mess, and therefore we've got to, as an individuals and as a collective, do something differently. And that's so powerful. It is so powerful. And the astrology, as you touched on earlier, the astrology of this time is so exciting. And even whatever resonates with people, however much they do or don't want to go in with it, you can use it so empoweringly. I mean, I did a lovely show last week with Laura Eisenhower, who I think is amazing. And, she just went into this big time. And I'm not an expert on astrology at all, but it was just made so much sense. And it was like, yeah, okay, this is what we can take for this, and how we can, like they say, do you want to put your canoe in the river and paddle really hard upstream against the current, or do you want to put it in the river and head downstream and let it flow? And that's a bit how I see astrology, is like, okay, once you know this, then you can take the path of least resistance to get to where you want to go to.
Exactly. And I think, it's I just go back to an interview I had a few months back with John Perkins, who
Oh,
was the author of the movie, of the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. What an amazing man that is, guys. If you have not seen those interviews yet, I did two with him. Please go and watch them. He speaks about how the American government in the, especially 60s, 70s, we're talking here, it's still going on there, would send the economic hitmen into third world countries to basically corrupt the governments and usurp their resources, right? And create war and chaos. I mean, us in Africa, we've known this for a very long time. It's no news to us that America has been in and out of Africa, snacking our resources for the last who knows how long. But my point is that he said something very, very profound, and he said, "We've all contributed to this mess." He said, "Think about the Illuminati companies. The banks are all Illuminati or cabal. How many of you work for the bank? Have worked for the bank? Have family that work for the bank? Bank with a bank, right?" The judicial system. I mean, if you've been part of the judicial system, I mean, that is as corrupt as what they can. Anything like that. If you are buying food from a company that is under cabal instructions, you are supporting the cabal.
Exactly.
So let us never judge that, okay? Let us just stand back and say, how can I do things differently? How do I as an individual make the change so that we as a society together can evolve? Because we do need to evolve, but we do need a bit of a revolution to do it. I agree.
Yeah, love it. I love it. No, so it's an interesting time for all of us. I mean, it makes me laugh in a way, but I think what's happening in America and the big competition coming up, which isn't really a competition because I'm sure it's pretty preordained which way it's going to go anyway. Just like ours was in the UK and just like most of the countries were, it's still a time for change. It's still a time for big shifts of energy where there's a lot of opportunity to harvest that energy in a positive way, or there's a lot of opportunity to harvest that energy in a negative way. So anytime you've got, like yesterday with 9/11 things, anytime you've got these big world events where so many people are focusing their attention in one area, the awareness then of like, okay, what energy you're bringing to that focus is so important, because that's going to, without a doubt, butterfly effect, quantum field, whatever you want to call it, it is going to shift our reality in one way or another.
Exactly. And I think our reality is shifting every moment of every day. And I think more and more of us are getting conscious of that now. And I'm just so happy that your awesome little viewers on this channel are actually moving with the times and moving with the tides. It's so cool to see you guys. Anyway, Catherine, that was so cool. I love today's chat. Is there anything else you have to say before we bid each other farewell for the week?
I think I think this is a really great time. People sort of sit there and sort of say, a lot of people, and it depends what you're going through. I mean, if I was in Gaza, I wouldn't be saying that. But where I am in my little enclave of the world, I see the opportunities are so amazing at the moment for all of us. And I think this awareness that so many people have got, and the compassion that we can share for the people that aren't in a situation that are as lucky as we are. We know about the injustices and how, our history, we've raped and pillaged from all over the world. But you see, once we've got that awareness, we can move forward with a different energy towards it. And I really do think people are doing that. And I've seen sort of a shift in a lot of people, and I think where I started off by saying a lot of people, like, you know, one of my friends is sort of saying bury the head in the sand. It's like, okay, fine, what is everyone's role in this process? You know, what are we all here to do for our individual, you know, not what someone else said we should do. What are we being feel called to do? Because we're only we know whether we're in alignment with ourselves or not. Other people can speculate whether we are, but they don't know. Only we know that. And I think so long as we all keep asking us that question and just making sure we course correct when we go off alignment, then we'll be okay.
Exactly. It's okay to go off alignment. And in fact, it's lots of fun to do some spiritual 4x4ing as well. Yeah. You can go off that beaten track and go bundu bashing. Do you guys know what bundu bashing is, or was that a South African term?
South African term. I know what off-road 4x4ing is. Yeah, love it.
Well, bundu bashing is the same for 4x4ing off-roading. Right, in the mountains and in the rocks, and then you found your way back again because you found so many gorgeous little creatures and bugs and schmugs and all sorts of things off the beaten track, right? So have fun while you're off the beaten track, but just know that you're in control at all times. Yeah, well, it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much for everyone for joining us. We've got people from quite a lot of different areas, so thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Probably very early for some of you, very late for some of you, so great to have you here.
Indeed, and I thank you so much, everybody. Have yourselves a beautiful weekend, and I shall see you. I'm not sure about the weekend, but hang in there, I'll let you know. John, I will see you tomorrow. I know you're watching. Thank you very much. And everybody else, have a marvelous time. Take care and don't be naughty now. Goodbye.
Bye.